Interesting. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so after sleep, which I agree is extremely important, what would be the next one that you...
Okay, so the next thing is nutrition.
Nutrition. All right, let's talk about that. There's lots of controversy around nutrition. We deal with this all the time. What are the staples in nutrition from a health longevity standpoint?
Can we first address, though, like how much knowledge most doctors have in nutrition?
Yes.
Coming from
Close
a doctor?
to nothing.
Okay,
We got nothing in medical
It's
school.
like a semester, right?
No, it wasn't even a semester.
Wow.
I don't even remember getting a lecture. I mean, I skipped some lectures.
Don't you find that, I just find that crazy or ironic, or is it our fault as a
mind-blowing.
society just to assume that doctors have all this nutritional? That was, as a trainer, that was one of the hardest things, being a 23-year-old fitness trainer, and then I've got doctors that were giving terrible nutrition advice to my clients, and then of course I lose that battle all day long because I don't have the PhD.
Yeah. So looking in front of the camera now, look, the traditional MD doesn't get a lot of training, and fortunate to have podcasts like this, that people start to understand, how important nutrition is to your health. And we didn't get that. And so I had to do all that training after I got disease and start to understand, what I need to put in my mouth and how important the role is. Nutrition in terms of food is medicine.
Share that journey then. What was that like for an MD, educated person, and now you're going to start heading down the nutrition path? Did you have some pitfalls? Did you try some specific diets, or how did that all come together for you?
Yeah, so it initially just started not doing the SAD diet, which is the standard American diet, right? So I actually went vegan for a little bit, and that actually improved my symptoms, but only to a certain point. I started to find out, to discover that I started to get a little bit tired and things like that, and my body was craving the protein. So I went vegan for a little bit. Then I started to take in meats again, but then I started to take in the quality meats. Right. So a lot of it was just ditching the standard American diet, which is just ditching sugar, ditching processed foods, and sticking to pretty much a whole food, minimally processed situation that I use to kind of reverse my chronic conditions.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that about going vegan, and you initially felt some improvement. This is the pitfall that a lot of people run into: is they'll try a diet and they'll start to see some improvement, and they'll think it's about the diet, when in reality it's about probably the reduction in calories. So you probably went vegan and ate less, and eating less, typically, if you're eating in a calorie
or you
surplus
eliminated
before.
some crap that you
that's the main thing.
That's
I think most people are just eating crap.
That's what it is.
So limiting the crap.
That's my experience. My experience, I would tell a client that you would fall in love with any said diet. It could be the vegan diet, carnivore diet, paleo, whatever. Oh my God, so magical. It's like, well, let's look at what you were doing before.
You're not eating donuts anymore.
And what you do now. And it's more likely that you were doing something that was probably a gross offender and your body didn't like.
Right.
And now you're not, more so than it is this magical diet.
Are there general things around nutrition when it comes to creating this positive bioenergetic state?
I think that the key things are, like I said, getting rid of the sugar, getting rid of the processed foods, including good healthy fats, coconut oil, avocado, olive oil is good. The meats that you choose, I think, are going to be important because there are meats, industrial raised meats, that are going to be more inflammatory than meats that are like grass-fed or sustainably, raised fish, pasture-raised chicken and pork.
You mentioned coconut oil. It's super high in saturated fat.
Yeah.
So, and now we've talked about saturated fat and some of the myths surrounding it. So why recommend an oil that's so high in saturated fat when we're told so often to completely avoid, at least we were told so often to avoid that? Yeah,
well, we were told, to avoid that because back in the day, people really thought that LDL was the main issue in terms of, cardiovascular events. That story is starting to change a little bit. So saturated fat will raise your LDL levels, and I noticed that as well. But one, I found I was more satiated when I ate more saturated fat. It will bump up your LDL levels a little bit, but people need to dive in a little bit deeper. If your LDL goes up, there are factors that are more important than just the LDL alone. How fluffy your LDL particles are make a big difference. So if you have nice fluffy LDL particles, that's not atherogenic. Your particle number is going to be super important as well. So if you've got lots of very tiny particles, they are more atherogenic than when you have a lower LDL number. So all these things play an important role. So I mean, people were demonizing saturated fat before because they didn't want to demonize sugar at the time.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know the sugar industry actually that came out that they actually spent money on that.
Yep.
There was a famous study too where they took a group of. It was actually quite controlled where they took a bunch of people, cut out their saturated fat intake, replaced it with processed vegetable oils, and they did lower everybody's cholesterol. Then later on, when they followed them along, they actually saw their mortality increase. So they had lower cholesterol numbers, but they had higher mortality in this particular study.
Yeah, I think they were using corn oil.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. So
very interesting.
So I think the story with LDL is a little bit incomplete, and we're starting to understand it's not just the LDL alone.
Yeah, that's cool. And I will say this. You mentioned this earlier about pharmaceutical companies driving a lot of what we learn. We have a drug that very reliably lowers cholesterol, and I think that's part of the reason why we've placed so much focus on cholesterol, because we have an easy solution. Oh, high cholesterol, take this pill. And there are some benefits in certain situations. The studies are quite clear on that, but I think it's so much more complex than that, right?
It is absolutely more complex than that. And just to let people know, I mean, a couple years back, I was thinking, oh, we should put this, everybody should be on this.
I've heard that. Put statins in the water.
Yeah, it'll lower your cholesterol levels. It's also kind of like anti-inflammatory, but people don't tell you that years of taking it will affect, your muscles. It can, cause, esophagitis. It will cause, muscles to kind of leak. Cause your muscle to be inflamed. So it's not, if you got early stage and your cholesterol is just a little bit elevated, go the lifestyle route. If you got a heart attack and you've got tons of plaque, okay, fine. Maybe start there and also use the lifestyle.